We're live once again.
Hey,
What's up,
Jeremy.
man? How you doing?
Well, as you can tell probably from my background is I am preparing to relocate.
Yeah, moving sucks. I think from a user experience design perspective, it feels like it's the one or one of the many sort of experiences that no matter what you do, unless you throw just an ungodly amount of money at the problem, it's awful, just awful.
I, uh, I I told a friend yesterday I felt like Doraemon's pocket. The more things I pull out to pack and get in a box, the more things I find that I still need to pack.
I know. And then you get to the next place and you like unpack stuff and then you look at all these boxes. You're like, what is all that shit? I don't even know what's in there. I don't need any of it. I don't care what it is. And then you open it up and then like you just throw it away without looking. That's the goal.
Yeah. How are you
Oh,
doing?
anyway, I'm good. I'm in the basement of my co-working space with this amazing background. So I thought it would be a nice overhead light. Maybe investing in some lighting is in the cards.
Nice.
All right, we should introduce what's going on. Let's introduce ourselves.
All right, I'll go ahead and kick it off. Hi, everyone. My name is David Issa. I'm a digital transformation architect and design thinker here with Design Language. And with me is Jeremy.
What's up? I'm Jeremy. I'm a longtime product designer, now the founder of Robot Heart, a custom software and app studio, working with startups and operating companies to build custom software for themselves and or their end customers. And this is Acquired Taste, a show about the deep dive, the nuances of evolution of modern product design and strategy. I love that line because it doesn't really say anything without, it's just empty. So
I loved it though, man.
it's,
You delivered it excellent.
thank you. Thank you. So
So,
before I start, I have to tell you a story before we start. So we've been
okay.
doing this now. What is this? Is like our fourth episode, I think.
Uh-huh.
And I think we have something like 3 YouTube subscribers. It's really amazing. We're doing this on Substack mostly, and we have some subscribers there, but on YouTube we have not many. And so my son makes fun of me for this all the time. He keeps asking when we're going to get our fourth subscriber. So needless to say, so now I'm getting climbed on by my son. So then meanwhile, he's been asking to start his own YouTube channel, right?
Hmm.
And we finally agreed he wants to do memes. And we finally agreed, but can't have his face in it, can't have his voice in it, can't have any identifying information of any kind. So made a deal. So he's creating these memes. He's just making them in Canva. He's putting them online. He created an account yesterday and he already has more subscribers than we do.
I love it. It goes to show, man, content matters.
I know, right? His content strategy seems to be better than ours. He's just posting
Ma-
silly shit that he thinks of, and we're trying to be serious, and he's winning.
Ah, I don't know if does that speak to like the de-evolution of the internet? Is the internet dead because of that?
Maybe, or because I looked at the memes that he created, and they're silly, they're kind of funny, and in it, but it seems to maybe hold in the zeitgeist of it all. They're all shorts, and so I don't know. I don't know.
You know,
Maybe soon he was going to be. I'm going to be begging him for a mention.
you know what it is? We're showing our age.
I know. I know. It's true because he like, gets it natively, and I'm like, what? Like, it's a clip art.
Well,
What is that?
Well, hopefully we'll get our fourth subscriber with this episode.
Yeah. All
And
right.
we have an exciting episode today. So, this is something, Jeremy, that you actually brought up. Today's
Hmm.
episode is about micro interactions. And I use that in the macro sense, meaning that we're going to be talking about, all types of subtle, detail oriented interactions that happen within a software system, a digital experience, if you will, and noticing what people potentially miss when they first glance at things, but somehow really helps to kind of tie an experience together. That being said, it's kind of an austere topic. Like, what made you think of this, Jeremy?
Yeah. So I was thinking about as I was working on a couple of projects that I'm working on, and I'll share some of them in the video just because it's
Hmm.
related. And I was thinking about those details, those micro interaction. Those there's just going to be a word for it. Sometimes they're not even interactions; they're just details or nods or interesting ideas. And I think what's so interesting to me about it now is a couple of things. First and foremost, you hear a kind of ad nauseum right now that the only skill that matters is taste, like product taste. And it's okay, what the fuck does that even mean? And I think in this case, what it means, like from our perspective, our design perspective, is the focus on those details, or at least that's a component of it. And having you and I haven't done this for a combined total of more years than I want to say online, is we've seen a lot and done a lot. And I think we have opinions, which is really what taste is, having an opinion
Mm.
informed by experience about these things. And so we noticed them. And so I thought it would be fun to, one, just geek out on it a little bit, talk about some of them that we like, or that we've noticed, and talk about what's interesting about them, what's good and bad. So that's the first thing, because they're important, right? These details, you can telegraph care, right? People who spend time on the details of products, you can oftentimes assume from them, if they spent this much time investing in the product, then it must work well, right? People that are behind this product give a shit about it, right? It's not some fly by night vibe coded piece of shit that may or may not leak your passwords, right? So it does telegraph that. So that's that. And then the last thing is that a lot of the times in the past, these details would get overlooked because development was expensive, right? And so these interactions, these details, like the little that make the design shine, would get passed over because it was hard to
Mm.
communicate them. Engineers maybe wouldn't get to it. It was just something that was tacked on, if at all. Unless you had a culture that was really on board with that level of fidelity, most time it get passed off. But that's not the case anymore, right? All of a sudden, either designers have access to the code themselves, or at the very least, your developers are running agentic development pipelines, which means they actually do have the bandwidth and the time to actually create these things. And so hopefully this provides like a renaissance of that. And so that's why, in a very long-winded way, I thought this would be a fun topic to talk about. But I know you've thought about this quite a bit.
Yeah, and I mean, you're touching on, if I'm hearing you correctly, what I heard was if you have two products that do kind of the same job and one has taste, but you can't really articulate why that you'll pay extra for it, it's probably rooted in some types of micro interactions baked in there that give a nod to a better quality product ultimately at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Um,
It telegraphs quality, right? And like
yeah.
for whatever that means. And people trust higher quality things.
And then the second thing that really resonated for me, just because I've had a lot of experience with this, is I always hated the idea of oh, we're gonna add delight features to the project. And like there's a very big difference between, I guess, silly meme delights, not to bring back the opening reference,
It
but and
works.
and actual micro interactions or animations that are added to a feature and product that help to kind of tell the story of experience that that product is delivering. And
Right.
probably in old school software, micro interactions may be the last 5% that people would get to. And now we're almost seeing tables turn in the AI world, because now it's almost the first 5% that AI hands you, and the economics are flipped, and you're trying to build backwards from there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's a good call. And two, like the fact that you're going to get so many people churning out products because it's easier. I think you're going to see an onslaught of products. So people who build these products, whether you're a designer, developer, product builder, product manager, whatever, you want to understand how to make yours excel and stand out. These are the kinds of details you need to be able to understand and pay attention to and be able to ultimately produce.
Yeah. I think the idea that I want to anchor us on is that micro interactions are not these they can be whimsical at times,
Yeah.
but they're not these whimsy artifacts. They're
Hmm.
actually the elements that position and posture the product, right?
Hmm.
It serves both a usability lens as well as potentially a delight lens
Yeah.
in that sense, right? So, and not to mention, it gives the product personality. I mean,
Totally.
especially in a software as a service mode, or in a world where AI, I think, is starting to take over a lot more of the interfaces and the interactions. What are the opportunities for your brand to kind of get out there and
Totally.
define you? And those are becoming much more nuanced than they were before.
Oh, we talked about this in our Slack video. I think so, maybe I think even our first video, but the idea that that opinionated sort of fun design separated them from other business chat softwares, because other ones existed, right? There was HipChat and FlowDoc and who and others out there,
Hmm.
and this it just blew it away. And you also had Skype and all these other things, and for some reason, it was able to step in and just differentiate wildly. And I think it was because of decisions like that where it gave it that personality. Well, it's like, oh, it's enterprise software, but it doesn't have to be
Well,
boring.
if I think back, I have a feeling, the rise of these micro interactions came about initially from a pure personality lens, right? Oh, this tells a user what kind of product or company we are because we invested time, or we have engineers who were willing to put in extra time, right, of
Right.
their own to do this fun little thing. What we noticed though was that then the companies who really got good at it put on a usability lens, tied that to a
Mm,
usability lens.
yeah.
So the interaction now isn't only delightful, it makes a task faster, cleaner, or more confident. And I
Right.
think the definition of a micro interaction today, at least the good ones, anyways, are the ones that do both of those things.
I
They
totally
give
agree.
personality and usability, but you know the trap is not treating personality as just pure decoration, right? It's got to be
Right.
a signal within
Yeah.
the software.
And it shows what you stand for in a certain way. And that might be an exaggeration in some cases, but other cases it's not, right? And can people are going to become loyal to a to something or they're not, right? And this is a big piece of that.
Yeah. And your product is two things, right? It's what your product does out in the
Right.
marketplace and who your product is interacting with people. And I think we're seeing like you once again with AI where people are interacting now with software systems in a more conserva I was about to say the wrong word.
Conversational.
Conversational word
It's
tone,
a fun word to trip
right?
on the podcast.
I know exactly. But in a conversational tone, that personality is starting to matter more and more in the way that we interact with these.
Yeah.
Great example, right? Is like we all know the loading spinner, right? And it says, "Oh, I'm busy." But I think we've rapidly started to see now, a loading spinner just says I'm busy. Now we're seeing loading messages like it's a person who's thinking and picking and doing something deliberately. So you'll notice that a lot in the AI chatbots that you have. It's
Yep.
not just loading, right? Like because technically it could have just went back to that, but they're actually bringing out the idea that no, I'm thinking now and I'm giving you a message about what I'm thinking about, and that's
Right.
a whole new context and state for
Hmm.
that world. So
Yeah,
I mean with
absolutely.
that, Jeremy, what are some examples of
Yeah.
great
So
micro interactions?
our homework was to each go get a few to talk about. So we can just go. I'll start if you want. I'm happy to. Let me pull up my screen here.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. So the first one that I want to talk about is this application here, product called Sentry, which is a application monitoring software. I use it on some of my software products. It's very cool and very handy for someone like me who's just learning development. But the thing that I like about it, maybe you've already flagged it on the page, is this here. So you got this wild, fun, animated marketing site that has all this messaging, and you got the logo bid and all this. But if you don't want any of this, you just want to figure out what this thing does, you can turn off marketing mode, and it just brings you to a chatbot that says, like, "What do you want to know about it?" So there's no marketing, no value props. I love this. It's just, what's the point? Uses it, and so you just start typing and say, you know, what platforms do you support? Right. And so instead of going through the entire thing, you can just answer. Now, the question is, does this work? Because if this part of the interaction doesn't work, then it doesn't actually pay off, which is a big
Hmm.
problem. But anyway,
Um,
I thought that I love that one. I'm curious what your initial reaction to it is.
well, I love this, and I love it because this is clearly a firm that understands their users and the
Hmm.
personas that are there, right? So, you know, as even when you're talking to engineers who maybe live in a terminal, most of the
Right.
time and enjoy that, like, world. there's still a marketing team. The marketing team still needs to, have a brand and do what they do. And I feel like what this does is it walks that line between,
Yeah.
the no bullshit engineer that's, hey,
Does this do
I'm
the
here,
thing?
yeah, and I'm here for a serious, evaluation about a serious product. I need to know the facts and get to it as quickly as possible, especially if they're busy, right? So I love that. But let me, I mean, that's kind of a big interaction paradigm shift, no? Like, is it micro?
I think the idea that you can just the actual interaction itself is micro. But
Yeah,
I
the
hear you what you're saying, which
simplicity.
is that it's not a simple execution, right? But I think that's what makes it amazing. Because the thing is too is the juxtaposition between the two is wild. Because this is like, even this page is not even barely styled, let alone like this page, which is wild. It has
Yeah.
absolutely a ton of stylings, animations, this sort of terminal like
Yeah.
interface, which is like, it's very cool. I really like it. But at the same time, then this is just like none of that. Here's a terminal.
Well, they're giving, like I said, I feel like they understand their user really well,
Yeah,
and they're giving them both of the things they want, right? Because that serious engineer who's at work and needs to make a decision probably really likes that stuff in his off time or her off
right.
time, right?
Yeah,
Like they're into anime, they're into games, they're doing that.
sure.
But when I'm evaluating, a product to purchase, for a project that I'm working on, or as the CTO, you know, I may need to get to information really quickly, and I want to remove the fluff.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you +1 for the brand props because I enjoy it.
Yeah. No, it's good. I like it. Okay. Cool. So overall, not necessarily micro, but it is one of these decisions that, and I think what's cool about it is all things that you mentioned, which is that it's not just fun for the sake of fun. It actually is a pretty interesting user aware interaction. Okay. So that's my first one. All right, let's moving on. I will do the next one is PostHog, which is an analytics platform. It's open source, and there's also a paid for version. And it's funny. I'm going to reload the page actually, and it's funny the thing I'll show about, which is I'm going to talk about this sort of something that I like on this page that is very simple. The irony is that I actually find PostHog borderline unusable as a product. And I've tried to use it several times and I just can't make heads or tails of it. It's just way too complicated. They don't do a good job of onboarding or getting you to understand the tons of features that they have, right? That
Hmm.
being said, they have something on this homepage here that I really like. And that's this install with AI button, right? So you can go through the traditional path of getting started and filling out forms and all this stuff, or you can just click install with AI, and it gives you that single prompt, which you can copy and just drop into your AI tool, into Claude or Codex or whatever it is, and it just installs it. So essentially, it goes to being like a 3-click install directly into your code base, right? Which is nice. And it's,
That's
I think,
cool.
similar to what you're talking about. And it's for someone who knows they're going to install PostHog, right? So someone doesn't have to go through all the rest of it. And not for nothing, I love the desktop metaphor that they use on this page a lot, just as a,
Mm,
but that's not even what I came to talk about, although I do think it's really great. Um, but again, ironic because I find the product borderline unusable. But anyway, but either way, but it gets to something you were talking about earlier, which is that it has to not only be like visually and conceptually interesting, but actually has to have a usability component to it, which is that it's like you can get this into your application literally in 3 clicks. That's all you got to do, and the AI will take the rest of the way.
yeah, I'm a little befuddled by this one. Because like there's the retro, just all the retro branding and framing in it, which arguably the personality. And there's a part of me that just, has a soft spot for the old school interface and
You're like,
Windows like that. But at the same, and that is juxtaposed with this single click install with AI, which is usability at like modern usability at its extreme. And
right,
I feel like there's two things that are working a little bit in conflict with each other. And I haven't used PostHog before, so
interesting.
the way that you referenced it, I feel like meaning that it's complicated to use as a product. I feel like some of that messiness is actually coming out in the marketing site. So you have the single click install with AI, which is this modern usability, feature, but it's cluttered in all this old school retro
Yeah.
branding and things like with all the icons on there. Like I don't know what to click first, where to pay attention. If you think about the desktop, like one of the problems with people's desktops is they're often way too messy, right? How many times are
Yes.
you like having to periodically go through and clean up your desktop? And if anything, AI has, has a whole feature on it. And while I love the install with AI, I'm almost I need them to use AI to clean up the desktop on this one.
It's funny that you say about you feels like it's cluttered and you don't know where to start. That's exactly how I feel about the product. It's that like it is this incredibly powerful developer tool set, like so it got analytics, but it's the same thing. I get in there and I'm like, I don't know what to do or where to start. But
I
one thing I
mean,
did want to say, as you were talking about though, is like the install with AI piece and then the rest of the marketing piece is almost two different, not necessarily two different users, but certainly two different users at two different spots in the buying journey or in the acquisition journey, right? Because the install with AI is like, I know I'm going to put this in the product, right? I know it's going to be PostHog, so I'm just going to go pop this in because it's free and it's open source and all these things. So I'm going to come and do it. Versus I'm coming here because I need to understand what this is and learn more about it. And to your point, I still think that's a little bit. I get what you're saying, but is a different intention when you're coming to the site.
kudos to them, man, because I this is the first time I've seen install with AI though, and I have a feeling we're going to see a lot more of that in the coming future. And
Yeah,
this is the first time I've seen it there, and pretty soon I don't think you're going to be clicking in, at least in the Mac, downloading it and then drawing it over. You're just going to execute it straight through your AI assistant and go from there. So this one,
especially this one because you're putting it into your software, right? You're adding
yeah,
the script so that it can start to run and collect the data, and then you still come to the website to log in and use the dashboard, although it has a pretty powerful NCP, and so you
yeah.
can and this is
I
the whole
like the
conversation, another conversation.
Yeah, I like the rotating rainbow over that too. Kind of gives a nod to the magic behind installing with AI.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
here.
so
And that's that's a perfect example of a very micro interaction, just this subtle gradient shift, right? But it draws your eye, right? And that's what it's doing. And then down here, but then they bring this down below the fold so it doesn't compete, right? And then this one moves. And I also like this as an interaction paradigm. I think it's really interesting. But anyway, so overall, cool. But I think it has its pros and cons. And I agree with you, although I hadn't thought about it until you said it, which is that you have this simplicity that is absolutely conflicting with an overall sense of
mhm.
chaos, right? All right, cool. So that's one. I got three more to share. So this next one is of a product feature. It's in this one happens to be in Google Docs, but other applications use this tool. I'm not sure who did it first, but I really like it. And I don't know how much there's to say about it, but I feel like it's one of those things where it's where you go above and beyond normal form input. But on Google Docs, when you insert a table, you actually can draw the rows and columns
Mm.
that you want. And I know this is not unique to Google Docs by any stretch, but I just really love this. It just to me is one of those examples. They could easily say make table and then how many rows, how many columns, and you type it in, right? And you could easily do that. But to me, there's something about this that is just so magical almost. You can just draw the thing you want. It's fast, right? Your mouse is already coming across here. It leads
Yeah.
you right into it. And then you know exactly what you need. It's easy to count. It tells you the number as you're doing it. So you don't actually have to count the boxes. So anyway, just something that's really simple and straightforward to create. And I just really like it.
Yeah, I do love this. There was a time though where it wouldn't auto add the rows and it would cap out and you would have to add more.
Oh, like
Um,
this. Yeah.
it's
It
gotten
stops
better. I
here
mean, yeah,
20 by 20, which is pretty reasonable for a Google
which
Doc.
is yeah, pretty fine. It
This is
used to
not
be a lot
Excel.
more limiting. But it still frustrates me. Why don't you give me the option of just entering it as well?
Oh,
Right?
interesting.
Like this is great, but would it be so much to add? Well, more specifically, like even after I do it, right? Add it there, throw a table on the canvas, and then for me to add it now, it becomes a lot more clunky, and it would be great to just be able to adjust that a lot quicker.
Oh yeah, here the
I
insert. Oh yeah, oh there they are in here. But yeah, I see what you're saying. The actual editor once you're in the
Yeah, I
tool
love the
itself.
first time interaction. It was always the follow-ons because I always remember what frustrated me about this particular one is I would go to insert a table and then I would go, oh, wait a minute, I don't actually know exactly how many columns or rows that I need.
Mm.
And I would go back and count and then do it, and it just would slow me down. And that may be a unique personal one. Love the interaction though of creating tables that way.
But now I don't know how to delete a row. So you're right. I don't know how to
Um,
change it. I can add columns and add rows, but I don't know how to delete or do
yeah,
anything in it.
click on that down arrow.
Oh,
No, all right, never mind. Right
God,
click,
we're oh yeah, here it is.
delete row.
Oh
There it is.
man. See, that's a good example of I think how the design originally starts well but doesn't pay off. Now,
Yeah.
granted, I think it's important to note that on a tool like Google Docs, which obviously probably copies Word in a lot of ways, there are billions of users of this application. So it's actually very hard to make changes to tools like this, even for the better. And I think that's something that gets lost all the time is like, how come
Hmm.
this software is such a piece of shit and never gets better? It's because anytime they make any change, they get 100,000 emails telling them complaining about it, right?
Hmm.
And so that's, I think, to be fair to Google, I'm sure there's plenty of designers at Google who also hate this, but can't touch it because doing so will frustrate, the people that know how to use it. And so we want to be fair to you guys. We see you, we know how it goes. Um,
What's next?
all right, cool. All right, two more. And so these last two are actually ones that I have designed, and I'm showing them just because this is what led me to think about it. I was enjoying as I was design because actually in both of these cases not only did I design these are products I've built, right?
Mm.
There are no engineers, it's just me making this, or in some cases like with someone but another product person, not an engineer. And so these are interactions that I put in place, and I just was thinking about it as I was doing them, that I love the fact that I have this level of control and I can focus on these
Mm.
kinds of details now. I don't have to hope that an engineer can do it for me or spend the extra money if I'm hiring
Yeah.
them to do it and take that extra time, because at some point the cost benefit was harder to justify because oftentimes the payoff is a little vague. But now I love that I can just be like, I think it needs to do this, and then I can just go make it happen. Right. And I feel like it's going to open a lot of doors for designers in particular and creative product and engineer folks to get really creative. And so that's one of the reasons I was wanting to share these in particular.
Okay.
So this first one here is for the workshops. I run AI workshops remotely and in New York. And so we built this custom guide that goes through each of the workshops. And so this is one we did for co-work, which I have to fix because it says flawed work, but it's an easy fix. But as you go down, it's essentially a tutorial with steps. And one thing I wanted to add here is as you mark a section complete, it just gives that little burst of confetti, and then it scrolls to
Okay.
the next step of the workflow, right? And I think this is an interesting one because the confetti can be used for evil, right? Or at least not used in a responsible way. And I love to talk about gigs. I know you have thoughts on this.
Well, I mean, I love it in this context, right? For two reasons. A, you're in an academic style setting, right? So as you're completing a step, you're celebrating the completion and the milestone as a marker, and I think it absolutely works in that context. I think it would be kind of odd, right, if there was a confetti celebration, for completing a credit card transaction.
Exactly.
Congratulations, you just spent money, or filling out a form. And I say that because this is probably the closest example of something that is potentially delight only, where it's just personality, if it's used in the wrong moment, meaning a moment that isn't earned. I think in this
Right.
context,
I like that framing.
you're earning each of those moments. So there's this personality plus usability factor because you're encouraging the student, if you will, to really kind of get, towards the end of this course,
Yeah.
a course which, by the way, is for the benefit of the student, not the company or the people delivering it. Right? See it as highly appropriate in this context and love it. Right?
Thank you. Aw, shucks. And I think the two things there is one, tried to keep it micro in the sense it's not a full screen takeover. It's just a little poof. And it also moves you down to the next step of the process and indicates that you're done. Right. And I think that's the other piece too. It's like, you completed this, you're good. That's that feedback that's really important for a user. There is no uncertainty. You know you did it. It's like it's not just a click, it's a little explosion.
Yeah, I'll give a better example. This is where taste matters, right? And like I want to get on it. Throwing confetti delights all around in the wrong moment will just
Mhm.
become sort of a sugar high where 2 seconds later the interface feels childish.
Or
So
annoying, right? It's just
yeah,
like it's just
like imagine you're filling out a doctor intake form and it has confetti at the end of it, right? And you're just sick.
yeah, you're like my arm is broken, man. That's not cool.
Yeah. And so I mean, I think, a lot of times when we talk about taste and what's going into it, like factoring in, the personality of the software and the context that that software or interaction, plays itself out in matters quite a bit in terms of whether a nuanced interaction like this or animation is going to uplift it and actually give it strength or bring it down and make it silly.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Cool. All right, I got one more, and then I'm gonna share the floor with you. And this is another one that I did. So this is a tool that I built for myself for internal tooling, but it allows me to create user flows the same way you would in Figma or in Miro or any of those boards. But it does two things that I like. But the more important thing was the piece that I designed really for myself is that I have to move. The way I use these oftentimes is live with clients on calls. And so I need to be able to build them quickly. And so in this case, what I did is when you select the node, right? This is you build flow diagrams and flow charts, right? I put the next node easily accessible right here, and then having with keyboard shortcuts for each one, right? So you can quickly draft this out in real time as you're talking to somebody, right?
Mm.
And I think that's just one of those things where having used the other tools for so long, and this is another place where the kind of world we're entering is really interesting, is building your own tooling that works the way that you want it to. And this can just be
Yeah.
an expression of my own personal point of view on how this should work. And then it also, this is not related, but then it saves everything to Mermaid and Markdown, so you can share it with an LLM. But in the meantime, just the ability to do it fast and knowing how I want it to work, it's nice to be able to say, this is like my point of view. And in this case, I wanted something that I could use and move through fast. And so I created interactions that allow me to move fast.
So are you contemplating a party mode where confetti explodes after every node ad?
No, because that'd be horrible. Right? But it's a good example though, right?
Be,
Because this is
be
a place where confetti makes
fireworks on the
no sense.
screen.
Right.
Yeah.
And it would be, so that's the other piece of it when you come into that sort of taste piece, that idea of curation, because all I have to do is tell Claude to add confetti every time you add a note. It would take, I could do it by the end of this podcast. It would be live and it would be spilling everywhere. It'd be a fucking disaster. Right. But
Yeah.
like
What
that restraint is really important.
what I really like about these last two examples, just to kind of tie them together, is you look at them and you show two different dimensions of where micro interactions matter, right? One is delight, which has to be used sparingly and carefully, meaning, it's not until the person, you don't have confetti going all over. It's when they're completed with a section, the celebration happens and they can move on. And then in this one, the dimension is speed, right?
Right.
So you're enabling the user to kind of move and complete those tasks by removing a click that they may be executing 50 times a day to
Yeah.
help them get through that system a lot quicker and a lot easier. And that lends itself to the perception of quality. I mean, it is a
Hmm.
quality difference in my opinion, but
Yeah.
that's
You used
cool.
it. You built the diagram in it. So did it feel faster in
I
premium?
I was a
You can
beta
say no. You're
tester.
not gonna hurt my
Yes.
feelings.
No, I actually loved it. Ironically, there was an old school software system out of Tufts University. It was called Vue, VUE, Visual Understanding Environment or whatever. It was like an
Huh.
open source project out of there, and I absolutely loved it. All my initial app maps and workflows were created out of it. And the one reason why is because they had that feature that
Oh,
you
really?
just created. Yeah,
I know.
because
It's not a.
you could just click and add like in rapid succession, and when you and what happened was that project just got didn't get any love, and it became outdated, so it wouldn't work on modern machines because it was not web based. It was
Yeah,
a thick
yeah.
client system. So when you created this, all that old love came back. I was very excited. I'm a big
Cool.
fan of this.
Thank you. All right. All right. Enough about me. All right. Let's talk. So now I went a little rogue. I did a few. I did a few more. I got excited about this, but I'm curious, and you have some really cool ones lined up. So let me stop sharing my screen here, and you can
Well,
take
I
over.
I kind of went in the opposite direction. So,
Amazing.
and when I say opposite is, I'm still hitting, some of the dimensions, but what I'm going to touch upon first is one around trust and
Mm.
safety. Okay. And well, trust specifically. And it may not feel like trust, but hold on, I think it falls under this category, and that is the personality of Claude when it is actually going through and thinking. And if you
Can you zoom in a
notice,
little bit? Can you zoom in a little bit?
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Actually, does changing the shape help? Or
There you go. That's perfect.
awesome. What I
Oh yeah.
love about this is so much is happening when you're using Claude Code and doing this, and it flips between, it doesn't say the same thing every time, right? If anything, it comes up with, super fun words like, which is, oh, they don't, I think there's one that's
Normalizing.
boot,
That's my
like
favorite one.
booping,
Yeah.
clauding,
Beep booping.
worrying, honking, right? And that speaks directly to doing two things, right? It's being useful by helping the user understand that, hey, I am actually sitting here doing something, giving a sense of personality to the product and what it is. So the
Yeah.
user, the where I bring trust into this factor is the user keeps believing the system is working as it's going through this. And I don't know how many times you found yourself literally just looking at the AI screen waiting for that response to come up. And it's
Hmm.
because these words are changing that you're just absolutely glued to that screen, and it's capturing your attention.
Yeah. I love the personality piece of it. Let me ask you a question though. Do you think these are communicative enough? Because it's obviously like splunking doesn't mean anything. So if the thing is running, I had a task run today for like 12 minutes. And so it's like
Hmm.
at some point I'm like, is this working still? Because it's not actually telling you what it's doing in real
Yeah.
life. It's not saying, oh, I'm checking this thing or I'm querying this tool. And I think you can maybe expand it out and see that sort of thing. But the question is, does this do a good job, do you think, communicating what's actually going on?
I think within the context of this, right, the alternative to this is a loading indicator,
Yeah. Okay.
right? And this is replaced that, and it's the first time, I think we've had some personality interactions in the past where they did similar things, but and I think they're getting better at that, right? So I picked out kind of a small nuance in it. Now, when you work with Claude, like co-work or one of those, it'll actually break its steps down. So I'm sure you've
Yeah.
encountered this with Claude, where it's like, oh, ran into an error, looking
Yeah.
into it and fixing, and those are the messaging steps that I think provide that extra context. But otherwise, no. However, I would also venture to say, Jeremy, that what's really happening behind the scenes here in most cases for the average user, you know, detailed
No,
information would not be useful
that's
for
true.
them.
That's true. I agree. Yeah, it would be like, but I wonder if there's a middle ground where it can get a little bit more detailed about what's happening. Oh, querying this system, or I am looking, I'm transfiguring this data. I don't know. I think that I wonder that there's a middle ground, because sometimes I feel like I don't know what's, and I'm like, is this still going? Is it like, it, but it always is. It just takes a while. But
I,
anyway, but I do love it though,
to,
because I love the way that and there was
to
one today
me,
that, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, to me, it solves the problem of not making the user want to abandon it, right?
Right.
A loading state that's just sitting there spinning makes you want to abandon it. Where this one, because it's changing words
Yeah.
as
You're
it
like,
goes, those are that's a thinking state, which is like the new loading state for
oh
the
yeah, I like
AI
that.
era, right?
Thinking state.
And when there's thinking, right? Thinking is automatically brings up this idea of partnership versus user vendor, and I think that's the subtle shift where the brand personality is meeting like a usable function in
Right.
this.
That's interesting. And as they become, the partner thing is really interesting, because you interact with these tools in such a different way, where they are partners in many ways. And you are dealing with this entity, whether or not, I know it's not really thinking, and I know it's not a real entity, it's just a bunch of computers. But at the same time, that's the way the interface expresses itself, right? And as a result, it does humanize it a little bit and make it feel like you're
Yeah.
communicating with a partner. I love that thinking
All right.
state. You heard it here
My
first.
thinking state. The next one, I've always been big into infographics. In fact, infographics and information design was one of the early reasons why I got into UX UI design in the early days. And I think we see great micro interactions on really well designed charts and graphs. A chart and a graph, especially an interactive one, like it's capable in today's environment, has the ability to really tell an entire story all on its
Mhm.
own, right? So in this one, it's not just about the hover diagrams that get you in, but then if I click into it, it zooms
It's
in
cool.
and it gives you what's happening now is it's breaking data down in a highly visual way. But by the zooming in factor of that, along with the hover, I'm getting extra layers of detail without losing orientation, right?
Yeah,
There,
that's really cool.
there's a world where, think about it this way, right? What I just did in a different I clicked on a row in a table and it brought me another table, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what's
Uh-huh.
happening behind the scenes. So you're able to kind of get a relationship and play with this data in a lot more meaningful ways to kind of help you understand what's going on, not just to help you understand really what's going on and where the story is behind that data in there.
Yeah, and it's
And
also
there's
just more
numerous
fun.
examples of that.
It's like
Yeah.
clicking through a bunch of tables isn't fun. This is a fun way of exploring the data. It makes it feel a bit of a game, and those interactions really can draw a lot of engagement in.
Speaking of fun, a close colleague of mine designed this next one. Well, former colleague of mine, I should say. His name is Hunter Thompson, incredible UI designer. And it's this. I just absolutely
It's
love
fun.
the way that this interaction happens. And what I see here, right, is something very subtle. Yeah, it's an animation, but I can blur out every word on here and you know exactly what this product does, right?
Yeah,
It takes words in, encodes them into computer speak, into audio files, and then writes them out onto a tape ticker, right? Like the old stock tickers of yesteryear.
it's
Um,
really beautiful.
this
It's really cool.
this to me is a great modern interpretation. Not to mention, right, when you use this product, right, and you click the voice transcription button, what happens at the bottom of your screen? This pops up, right? So What I love about this is like you're using a micro interaction that's telling a complete story about what this product does in a multi-dimensional way, while
Right.
also lending, giving it a brand and a personality that's unique.
Communicating how the product works too. And I just for not for nothing too, this whole page actually is worth breaking down because I think it's actually like a really well designed marketing and landing
Yeah.
page. Just everything about it, right? The
Uh,
giant H1 that talks about what it is, the single call to action, which is granted there's two buttons, but they're the same. And then the idea that with that black row down at the bottom, sort of implying there's content down below and inviting you to scroll without making it
well,
feel like an arrow that's like, hey, look.
even the contrast between the type, right? Don't type is
Yeah.
in gray because this is what we don't want you to do. Gray, it's boring, blah. Just
Right.
speak.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's more clear because it's got better
Yeah.
contrast. It's really nicely done. It's a
Well,
beautiful site.
Hunter Thompson's his name. He's a Webflow UI graphic designer, just incredible, incredible talent out there. He has no idea I'm giving him a shout out, but I'm a big fan. All right. Last but not least, I am going to, I need to stop share and share just one more window. And this goes back to, oh, a wall of text. Yuck. Right? But like when you're writing, man, what is writing? What is a book? Right? A book
Right.
is a wall of text at the end of the day. And IA writers been around. They've even won awards for this app, more for the simplicity that they bring to it. And what I love about it is some of the subtle features that they have around writing, which is like you're like, how much can you do around writing that's going to like improve it? One of the things I love that they do is this focus mode, right? So you see this wall of text. I need to focus in on this one paragraph and what I'm
That's
actually
so
saying,
nice. I love
here.
that.
It's not just beautifully designed, but like what I think makes this really relevant is it hits the dimension of attention, right? What they're doing is it's not, the focus mode here isn't really a feature, it's an argument about how to write. And like they're like, we have an opinion on that. You should be focused, you should have a need to focus at the paragraph level in this context. I can change that focus mode so that it focuses on the sentence by sentence, right? So as you get into different modes of writing, whether it's, free form writing now, they have a mode for that, or you're going back and editing so that you can perfect each one. They just bring an opinionated mode to that. And I love that because that opinionated nature is the personality of the product, right? It's usability and personality, coming together to create a delightful experience, geared towards one outcome, helping you
Yeah.
write incredible things.
And I love that just the idea, the focus piece of it is just focus on this, everything else falls away. And if you've written anything before, the rest of it can be distracting and it can be intimidating and sort of anxiety inducing. And the fact that it just abstracts all that away. It's just focus on the thing. Just do the thing.
What it it
What's it?
solves a real
Anyway,
problem, like the cognitive load, right? And
right.
it removes the rest of the document from competing, with the task of what you're doing. And they took a stance on that matter, right? Like that's
Right.
an editorial design. There was no data saying users want a focus mode. I doubt it.
Right.
I mean, I wasn't
It,
there.
it'd be
But
hard data to have. What is that? What would that even be? Yeah.
when what is, personally, I've never seen that in a digital, like outside of here or before this or before they did
No,
this, which
same.
was
Now
many, many
you
years
think
ago.
that so many of these companies that exist now, someone would have taken this, whether that's a Notion or Google Docs or any of these editors would have, Obsidian would have stolen this
Yeah.
feature. And who knows?
Uh,
But I think that's interesting. I know you've been a big fan of them for a long time, and I haven't used them too much, but I've been following them. And I know that they have been very disciplined and very, I don't know what the word is, but they've kept it very simple, very like this for a long time. They have
Yep.
resisted the urge to enshittify it and junk it up and add color
Yeah.
and all this other stuff. They've just been very intentional about what they're building and how they're building it. I think that opinionated piece is really powerful.
They do have color, but the color is, for example, show me all the adverbs in a sentence, right? So you can
But
toggle things
that's like a
on to
very
like,
intentional use of color, right? You
yeah.
know, it's saying what the color is a very practical like usability choice, right?
Yeah.
It's not just whimsy or fun. It's like this is going to help you solve what you're trying to do.
So part of the reason I wanted to showcase them and bring this up as an example is when I think about what the modern age of product innovation requires, it's this type of thoughtfulness, right?
Absolutely.
Users aren't necessarily asking or know that they need a focus mode, right? So here's a company that really owned their product, owned the users. So you can clearly tell that the people who built this write. They like to
Right.
write, right? So and they're not doing just, hey, like we're listening to our users and just doing whatever the next thing is that they tell us to, right? That
Right. The feature factory.
yeah, which it's a classic mistake, and it's a lazy product strategy. It's lazy innovation. I
Mhm.
don't think it actually fits in either of those two. And it's why a lot of the products we've seen today have ended up in shitified. It's because that's all those product managers and so forth are doing.
Right.
They're
They're like, oh,
not
we're listening to
actually,
users. It's like, you're
yeah.
not. Because this is, I would
Well,
actually argue that this is what you get when you actually listen to the
yeah,
users, right? When you actually have conversations with them and it's not, you're not looking at the analytics to your point and being like,
yeah,
oh, well, they all left because they can't focus. Of course not. But it's
yeah,
like you talk to it and they ask, oh, writing gives me anxiety and I'm worried about doing it. And I see this wall of text and all these things. And that's something that
yeah.
thoughtful designer or product person could take from that conversation and say, you know what, this is something
I,
we could add to address those underlying sort of human
yeah.
concerns.
I'd be curious how many times, the user said they wanted something more rich text and really, with this product specifically. And the
Oh, many
reality was
times.
something else, that they were able to deliver on. But love
They've been
this
around
just because,
forever. So obviously, it
oh
was
yeah.
working. Like this is one of the old. This is easily 15 years old. This product, right? So they're doing
I,
something right.
yeah, and I mean, I think this is going off topic a little bit, but I think people who have worked in agencies and had to be innovative from scratch and really leverage the design thinking process away from corporate America, where all of that's just data driven. Like, can I drive like, one incremental thing? When they need true innovation, what do? They go to an outside agency where that can kind of happen outside. I think the future with AI and where the competition is going to be is going to need people who are really adept at strategy, know how to kind of come up with the net new, right? The idea that nobody else has kind of thought of in a way that brings the personality and the usability, of the product together in new and incredible ways.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's right. Like that writer's a good example. It's a text editor. At the end of the day, this is the
yeah,
first computer program ever was that, right? And they found a way to take an intentional stance, be innovative with it, and then stick to their guns and be thoughtful. I think that's really interesting. And it's one of those things that seems like a detail, but actually says a lot about how they view the product and the quality and care that they bring to it. And I
yeah,
think that is when as we zoom back out, coming to the end of our examples here, I think that's the message that we're trying to communicate here. It's like these details, some of them seem trivial or fun or silly. And in some cases they are. In some cases they're partly that, but they also have underlying real usage. And
mm,
other times, like it is core to the identity and usability of the product itself. Right. And these things are so powerful now and accessible because you're really only limited by your own imagination.
yeah. Kind of drawing on that idea that historically all these engineering product managers would want to be like, oh, those are delight features. I feel like we just articulated five jobs that micro
Right.
interactions or animations do that are not just delight, right? They're communicating state, right? In
Mhm.
some cases, the system tells you where it's at, what it's doing, what's going on. There's this partnership conversation
Right.
happening. It reduces intimidation, so like that the product feels handleable, like you're not gonna, you can manage it. It's guiding
And
attention, right? Like in the example that delivered speed on your
yeah,
product, right? It's guiding, like, or even in the IA product, it's guide helping you figure out, hey, where do you focus in this noisy world
what do you do
on what
next?
to do
Yeah.
next? And
Yeah.
all of
Speed.
that,
Like
yeah,
you
and
can
all
actually
of
move
that,
faster through the product.
is improves the perception of quality, right?
Yeah. And it's hard
And
to measure.
those,
That's the thing I think you're getting at, which is a lot of times this delight feature, it's hard to measure what it means, but it's the fact that people give a shit about it and it's made by people who actually care. And as a result, the quality is going to be higher and better in the product, right? And I think that communication, if you're up against, especially now in a world where people can just barf out applications all day long with these tools, the ability to come and say this product is thought through well, this is, we've thought about all these decisions, we've thought about what makes it better and how we want to use
Mhm.
it and how we think you should use it, right? And using these pieces to communicate that is, I think it's very exciting because it's a huge opportunity right now, whereas once upon a time, I think that's why I got excited and pitched you the idea in the first place. That's just
Yeah.
great.
Well, it's the more that we've talked about this, what this idea has come to me is that micro interactions are how a digital product makes itself vulnerable and knowable,
Yeah.
to a
I like
user,
that.
right? Like
Yeah.
if you think about a digital product having a personality and a function, that it does, everything that we've described is a way that it is speaks to its vulnerability, like as a software product in a way,
Yeah.
so that it relates to you a little bit better.
I like that.
And taste is knowing what not to add,
Right, or
right?
how to
Like,
use this stuff, right? How to actually, don't put confetti on the credit card, those kinds of things. Where to deploy this stuff, where not to deploy this stuff, like where to think about spending your time and attention and where not to, right? And really understanding that piece, because I think that term gets thrown around so much now, and I'm hoping that we can do something to make that tangible for people.
yeah, most products have features, right? And people are just hammering feature after feature. Few products have what I would call manners, right? Which is like, here's
Yeah,
how you should interact. Here's how we're gonna like establish and tame this relationship between one another, and use the restraints that they have to guide that relationship for a great user experience.
yeah. All right. I feel like we should land this plane. How do you? Any parting thoughts? I feel inspired. I want to go like make something now.
Parting thoughts,
I feel like we just did that, but I don't know anything that we didn't get to.
yeah, I think I would emphasize that the opportunity now isn't just to build faster. I think everyone's attention's there. It's to build, because you can build faster, you should build with more care. and
Build
and
better.
that the whole reason we ended up on this conversation is because AI didn't really lower the bar, for this. It removed the excuse, and if anything, is going to elevate that bar. So now, having the taste of, and like I said, giving your software manners on
Yeah,
how it behaves in this modern age is going to be one of the most critical competitive advantages for folks,
be better,
businesses.
not faster. I love that. Amazing. All right. Well, thank you all. If you listened and watched this far, we appreciate you. This has been Acquired Taste. David, have a good rest of the day. Good luck with your move. We will
Thank you.
probably talk. We'll talk again, and hopefully in the next video you'll have even fewer boxes. Fingers crossed.
Hopefully, backgrounds will be changing over the course of the next
Yeah,
few episodes. That's
yeah.
for
Just
sure.
gonna, we're gonna keep it
Stick around to see where it lands.
keeping it spicy. All right, my friend. We will talk soon. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.